Super League spotlight shining so bright. Interviews and news, come join the hype.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Super League Spotlight. Rona, we are back.
We are, just like the amazing weather.
Just like the amazing weather. Yeah, I mean, how have you been this week? Busy with work?
Yeah, and a few more busies on top of that. But I think that's everybody at this time of year, isn't it? It's the most wonderful, joyful time of the year where you don't get a chance to breathe.
Are you in Christmas full swing now?
The tree has arrived, but we're currently getting painted, like downstairs painted. So it's not up. So I've got tree envy because I feel like everybody has their tree up. Have you got your tree up?
Um, we've got 8 Christmas trees in our house.
8. Well, do you know what? I'm calling that out as a lie because I can see behind you and all I can see is a cat.
Right,
So
so
I feel like you need to. I was actually going to try and get festive here. You know how my wall is really. I feel like I should start doing pointy things like a weather person. So I feel like you've got to
I've
post
got
your
a,
8 Christmas trees. Attach this.
I've got a Christmas t-shirt on. Does that count?
I feel like you're kind of Clark Kenting it there, where it's like hidden. So that's like a big reveal for like a secret segment later that I am not aware of.
Right, let's make a deal then. Next week we have to have a Christmas themed background.
Because we both have so much time.
Absolutely. But we've
And
said
I'm
it now,
still
it
not
has to happen.
That's fine. I will be relocating to somewhere, a pub that has nice lights and a tree. So you might not be able to hear me next week, but it'll look wonderful.
Amazing. Well, another week in the SLBW, another round of talking points. Let's start with Manchester head coach, well, former head coach, Kumesh Patel, has made the decision to follow Stella, of obviously London Lions fame last year, to
Mhm.
Greece.
Yes, and I think, European basketball, he'll have made that decision, and he wouldn't have made it lightly. Like he sort of put out in his own X post about what he'd started to get going, at Manchester and what they've built so far to be able to have someone come and take that over. But I think looking at where he's going to and working with Stella, for him to learn and grow and develop as a coach as well. Obviously the team out there have parted ways with their coach, Stella coming across from I think technical director. So change out there as well. And I think it's maybe testament to the work Krimesh does and how well they work together last year at London that she's wanted to pull him across with him. So I mean, all the best to him. I think be interesting times for Manchester. They just brought in EJ. They won at the weekend, which we're going to talk about, but they'd had a bit of a losing moment as well. So yeah, I think interesting times in the league this year. That's now 2 coaches left for various reasons. We don't know who the new Manchester, if they'll be interim. They don't play this weekend, so it's kind of bought them some time. I wonder if Rhian Bailey will step up either full time or in the interim. So we've seen Chloe Gaynor's done it, stepping up to head coach, and it's working for Eagles. Again, we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's all changing the league, and I think there's positives to it as well. It's exciting that actually there are coaching opportunities to go other places for British coaches and players coming in and players depart, and we're seeing quite a revolving door at the moment. So it makes the league more exciting.
Gives us something to talk about on a weeknight.
It does. Thank you for that.
Let's talk about the weekend just gone. There were 5 matches, all on the Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
One I was at Durham against Sheffield, 52-101. Sheffield very dominant.
Mm-hmm.
The standout performance from Laura Zolper, 18 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. As I said last week, I said the week before, Sheffield looked very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And that hasn't changed my opinion at all at the weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, watch me have egg my face, but I can't see Vanessa else going anywhere either. And they've got that continuity, that stability there, a point guard and Georgia Gale who's been there, for quite some time as well. I think also Shauna Harrison, league high this season so far from her. And I think that would be good for the Hatters having that as well. Her coming in with her 25 points, 5 from 8 from 3-point land. And I think it's just shown that Sheffield have multiple options, multiple scoring options if they're able to get into their rhythm. And that makes any team dangerous because you can go out and scout a team and then somebody else like that is going to come off the bench and show what they're made of as well. We know she's a good player, but we maybe haven't seen it to that extent yet. And if 1 through 5 can be a scoring threat, that's then more challenging for the opposite coach when matching up against that.
Yeah, and Durham, very short-handed, few injury issues at the moment. Hopefully they can address those issues that they've got
Mhm.
moving forward because they have looked competitive all season. So yeah, it'd be good to see if they address those issues sooner rather than later.
And I think Durham, like you say, when they're there, when they're all there, when they're available, when they're able to run still a smaller rotation than some teams, but like a consistent rotation, they're performing and they're getting results.
Mhm.
So that must be frustrating for both, Coach Lee and also the team. But I'm sure they'll chalk that one up to experience, move on.
Right. Speaking of moving on, Manchester versus Caledonia.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, your team, Caledonia, losing.
I'd like to point out I'm a neutral. As a commentator in a podcast, absolute
Yeah.
neutral. I
Yeah.
took off my Caledonia Gladiators hoodie before I came on, so that
Right.
makes me a neutral.
So Caledonia start losing a few games and you turn neutral. Come on. Come
oh,
on.
look at that wide hole because he's about 200 miles away. But no, and I think that's the thing is it's always trying to see it from an outsider point of view. You do have ties to the club, and yeah, so it is difficult. She always want, especially a Scottish club, to be doing well, but disappointing loss for them. And I know they'll be disappointed that both teams were going into that wanting to win. I know it's South daft because of course you're going wanting to win, but snapping a losing streak or just even getting over that sort of being in one of the top four teams and someone posting a triple double on you, that's pretty good going from a Manchester point of view. But also it just shows again the firepower Manchester do have when they manage to string it together and they manage to get all the pieces of the puzzle working well together. Sometimes they can be, because they've got such a large bench and they've got so many players of a similar ability and standard and what they bring, you're never quite sure where that rotation is going to come from, and sometimes players being in and out that can affect that. But potentially this is them settling into it, but you never know. New coach coming in, so there's so many moving parts there.
Mhm.
But I'd say good win for Manchester there. They'll be pleased with that. Even though Gladiators are sitting seventh in the league, they won't be going into it like they're playing against a seventh place team in the league. They know that actually Gladiators can be very threatening and they could easily take the game from them. But obviously
Yeah.
not on this occasion.
So, I mean, this podcast is sponsored by Dan Routledge. He
Yeah.
put a tweet out saying that was the 29th triple double in like the league history.
Mhm.
Davida Dale with 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 13 assists. So, I mean, everyone still loves a stat, right? I know stats aren't the be all and end all, and people talk about the eye test, but everyone loves a good stat line.
They do, and I think the 13 assists there, so that's a potential another 26 points she's created on top of hers.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think, an assist are an important thing because it's how you're getting the ball there, but also that her players have been ready. They've been ready to score the buckets. They've been ready, to finish it off and be clinical with it, and that is important in that sort of situation.
Essex against Oakland's dress rehearsal for the Betty Cordona Trophy semi-final this weekend. Oakland's getting the win by 12 points. Thoughts on that one?
It was an up and down game, and Essex showed that they have potential to beat Oakland's, but then Oakland's just showed that sort of they were able to stick with it. They were able to, work with their game plan, and then you were able to have people like Shanice Beck for Norton go off, and be able to push out that run, and take it. And once they did, that was them sort of, they were up and running. But it'll have been interesting to see if they do anything differently compared to what they've just had in this weekend. I thought I was so tired earlier that I was like losing the plot because I was like, no, but they've just played. And I was like, remembering it's the best Cadona this weekend. When I was looking at things, I was like, but I think the positives there from the Essex side, Taylor O'Brien, maybe not, up in the figures we normally see, but that's to do with Oakland's how they've scouted it and the players they've got to match up against her there. So both teams will be coming in afresh. I don't think Oakland's will be coming in going, oh, we've got the win. This is ours to take again. And I think Essex, a little bit of licked their wounds because they did lead, for a large part of the game. So they'll be known that they can do that to Oakland's. They'll be seeing it out for those 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on. Nottingham-Leicester, another low-scoring game involving Leicester. Really 55-66, but Leicester got their victory.
Mm-hmm.
This one.
And I think that's what it's about. Sometimes you just have to win. And that's what they'll have gone into, that is to win. Nottingham, they're quite up and down. they're getting some wins. They're also taking some losses, some tough losses at times. But Nottingham probably pleased with how they performed to an extent. I'm sure, yes, they'll have wanted to win and they've wanted to push it over the line. Riders, you saw a bit sort of better fluidity within the team. And I thought they looked like they were playing a bit better. So, yeah, I think Riders will be happy if they got that win. Nottingham will maybe feel like they could have pushed harder. And again, it should be another good matchup on the return.
You mentioned Chloe Gaynor stepping up. Let's move on to her second victory as a head coach. 99-53 at London. Not as surprising as the win against Manchester, but a clinical performance nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think it's been good that the London have come up and they've had that game Newcastle as well, where, like you say, it is maybe more of a game you'd expect them to win with London's current form. But again, there's so many moving parts all the time. You can't go into any game and expect to win her. And Chloe would then have to back up what she's achieved the weekend before. Was it a one-off? Did the team just rally because of everything that had gone on? But it looks like, they've gone in, they've put in a solid performance. A 40-point plus win is not to be sniffed at. So they've gone out as well. That magic 100, just like with the grasp there, because we've talked about that in comms before. Like, people go mad for the 3 digits, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if because on old scoreboards you didn't have space for 3 digits, so who knows.
Sheffield hit their 101 on the last shot on the buzzer.
Yeah, and
even that got a reaction with the Durham crowd.
Yeah. So it's funny, isn't it? You're just like, well, 100. Like a win bonus for the fans or something, like, oh, you all get to come back for free next time. But no, I think good, and I think we're seeing more and more Jada Gwynn and what she's capable of. I think she's looking like quite an exciting player. So again, I mean, it feels like we're further than 4 games, 5 games for some teams into the season. I mean, I know we had a couple of trophy games at the start, but I still feel like, I mean, we're in December now. So that is wild to think that some teams are averaging a game a month. Like London Lions women posted home games this month. Was it all games? And there was 1.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
I saw that.
Absolutely shocking. I think it's shocking. I'm like, all right, a game. I don't know. Anyway.
Right. Do you know what? I think that's enough from us. Let's get our special guest on.
Indeed.
Now, so in speaking of Newcastle, she spent 4 years there, and now she's moved to local rivals, Durham, and it's going to be really fascinating to get to hear her basketball journey. So without further ado, let's welcome Marina Fernandez to the show. Hello, Marina, and welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
We are all good, ready to talk some basketball with you. Should we just go straight in, and we'll start with where are you from? Where were you born?
So I'm originally from Barcelona, Spain. Grew up there, born and raised, and then I moved away when I was 18. I was in America for 5 years playing basketball. Went to a junior college for 2 years in Wyoming, middle of nowhere, and then moved to North Dakota State for my last 3 years. So also the middle of nowhere. And when I graduated in 2020, moved to Newcastle, obviously spent some time there, and now I'm in Durham.
So from Spain, Rona, didn't you play in Spain for a little bit?
I did, and I don't know, Marina, if you've ever come across warming up outside, whether it's 28 degrees or 3 degrees.
Yeah, warming up outside is a real thing when the court is not available. So we just don't waste any time, get it done outside, and then we're ready to go on the court.
Yeah, I feel like as a Scottish player, I was quite tough. And then I went out there and I was like, I've got to get heat stroke. It's so warm. But yeah, it's a nice place to go and play some sport, isn't it? So although you've gone the opposite way and come to such holiday hotspots such as Newcastle and Wyoming.
Yeah, we definitely didn't warm up outside. I don't think you can.
It's probably
you get
something
tough with it. You kind of get used to it, kind of.
Yes, just.
Kind of. So let's take you back to when you were a child. When did you first start playing basketball?
So I started playing basketball when I was 13.
Okay.
I always got told to play basketball because I was tall, the tallest in the room. But I always said no. I think just because people wanted me to play, I said no. So actually, like I played different sports and then I loved handball. And I only stopped playing handball because my hometown team kind of like fell apart. It was like that sort of like transition period for girls. Like some of them stopped playing handball, some of them moved away, some of them played other sports. So we didn't have a team. And then I kind of like found myself being like, what do I do now? And my mom was like, do you want to play basketball? And I was like, no. And she was like, just give it a go. And here we are. Give it a go. And I've played basketball for, yeah, 14 years now. So it did work in the end.
Yeah, yeah. So did you have any influences within your family for basketball, or was that completely external?
No, with basketball, my family is quite into sports. My parents, both of them were runners, mid distance, long distance. My sister did gymnastics. She also did athletics. But I've always been like a team sport type of person. So I think I've always enjoyed having a team, having teammates that sort of like getting to know people, team chemistry. So I was never an individual sport type of person, but I've always been around sports, so that always helps.
What made you kind of keep going? So 13 years old, it wasn't long before you kind of went across to America. What made that jump for you? What made you make that decision?
I don't know. Initially, I was quite skeptical about playing basketball. Like I said, like I came from handball, and when we played handball, like we took 3 steps, and then with basketball, it's two. So as you can imagine, it wasn't the prettiest experience for the longest time. So it was very frustrating. I remember just being like, "Why do I keep traveling?" And everyone's like, "That's a travel. That's a travel." I said, "Shut up." So I think just my mindset of like wanting to get it right and learning how to like do different things came from different sports and just kind of like got into it. And like as we always say, like basketball is so dynamic, and there's so many different things and different skills. And I just ended up falling in love with it and just that sort of ambition to always try to get better. In Spain, I always stepped up with like older teams, and I was always challenged and led by all the older players who had more experience, more IQ, and I was always held accountable. So I felt like I've kind of like fell in love with being challenged to always better myself in different ways. And yeah, I feel like that's how I kept going and then had the opportunity to go to America and here we are, yeah.
So you talked about kind of the transition from handball, and maybe it's because obviously that team fell apart, one reason or another. What was the kind of female basketball scene in Spain like at that time?
In Spain, it's quite competitive. I remember going into my hometown team, and I felt at the time that my team was amazing. I was literally like I was so like amazed by how good they were, and I was very lucky to always play at the highest division regionally for Spain. Like when I was playing for the junior teams. And we always had like some of the best teams in the country in Spain. Like we always had the top teams always going to national championships. We had national team players and stuff. So I would say that in Spain, it's always been very competitive, always had very skilled and high IQ players. So I think that always challenged me to try to like play in different ways to kind of like compete. I mean, I actually started playing basketball as a post. Yeah, I was the tallest one, and they said you can go in the key, and I was just like, sounds good because I was new, so I was just like, sounds good. So, um, every once in a while, I show my footwork. But yeah, and then I developed and ended up being a guard. So I feel like that's part of why I fell in love with it. Just always, playing different positions and trying to be versatile and play in every position that the team needs me to play.
Okay, so America came around. Quite an intense experience in America. I hear that a
Yeah,
lot from people. Talk
yeah,
your
definitely.
kind of the initial starting period and then how that developed across the 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely intense. It's just you breathe, eat, sleep, basketball. It's always like super intense and like the standards are so high. And I feel like when I was in Spain, I always thought that we were playing at a really high standard. And then you go to America and it's just kind of like an eye-opening experience where like there's just more levels to it, you know, like the intensity, the pace, the physicality, and obviously we trained every day for like 3 hours, and then we had S&C conditioning. So it's just challenging, and obviously like that first year, like being away from home, like it was tough in many different ways. Like my English wasn't very good at all. So it's just like a different experience in many different ways, and just trying to get adjusted in every life aspect of it. And obviously school was challenging as well. So yeah, I think it's like a big experience, especially when like you are from abroad and like you also add like the language barrier and stuff. But when it comes to like growth as a person, like I think it's something that shaped me into who I am now, and like my mindset and stuff really got shaped based on my experience in America.
How good was, because I mean, your English is obviously outstanding now, but how much English did you have before going? Because I know before I went to Spain, I had nothing. I texted a friend who lived in Spain to ask how to like say hello, how are you to the coach when I got off, and then that was
Yeah,
it. Like I couldn't. I had somebody translating for me during games,
yeah.
so I found it really isolating to start with. And I'm someone who
Mhm.
you might have guessed loves talking, you know. So how much English did you have? And I think what was coming through for me is how headstrong you are, and I get the vibe that you were like, nah, I'm going to do this. But yeah, how was that transition with the English and different style of play? Like you must have just felt like someone had picked you up and literally thrown you across the pond.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, my mom taught me some English at home because she knew English and she loved it. She kind of like learned it by herself. Where like she had her books and like her videos and stuff. And I kind of like grew up with her trying to teach me. At the time, I was quite reluctant to it. I was just yeah, I was a bit difficult at the time. And I was just like, I don't need to do this, and
I
like
don't
I was
need
like, I don't
English.
want
I
to
don't need
learn.
basketball. And now you
Yeah,
speak
I was
English and play
that sort of
basketball.
kid. Yeah, I don't know why. Quite strong character at the time. So yeah, with my mom, like I learned the basics and like the grammar and stuff. And then in school, I think it's probably at the age of maybe like 6, 7. That's when in school we start actually having our English lessons, and we just learn the basics of like the vocab and like start counting, colors, stuff like that. And we take English all the way up until we're 18. So like we end up like working on our speaking, like reading, writing, all of that. And like when I was in school, I was usually one of the best ones, and I was quite confident in my English skills. And then I went to America and it was just a humbling experience. Like when I was in Spain, I felt like I was definitely one of the more fluent ones. Like I could speak, like I could write and stuff. And then I went to America and I was just like, I cannot talk. Like I cannot understand a word. Like everything was so fast. And like with Americans, like they have their own lingo and like their own vocab and stuff. And like if you're not locked in to actually listen, you just don't get anything. And like trying to have that conversation and having to think and having to translate and then having to think about the pronunciation, and like my accent was quite thick at the time as well. Like I had a very thick Spanish accent. So yeah, it was quite overwhelming, but yeah, I think I was just determined to, like I wanted to like talk to people and I wanted to like get to know people. And I was very lucky to have an English roommate at the time when I was in America, and she had so much patience. Like Becky was, she's from England, so she had so much patience with me. Like now looking back, I'm like, I could barely talk, and she always tried to translate things for me or like describe them so I could like understand in different ways. And I feel like just coming across so many nice people who welcomed me and always tried to, like slow down and ask me like, hey, like, do you understand and stuff like that, got me to where I'm at now, because I definitely wasn't here. Like I wasn't anywhere near where I'm at now.
I think there was benefits to it as well because every time I came off the court, my coach would say "well done" because in the heat of the moment he couldn't think to tell me what I'd had done was absolutely shocking and I needed to sit my backside down and think it through. I was like,
Good
"No
job,
bother,
yes.
I'll just be over there when you've calmed down." So there are spot or there was a time that a fight broke out in the stands and I was like after I was like, "What happened?" Like, "Oh, they were calling you horrible names." So, like the parents had all stuck up for me and going, and I was like, "Magic."
Thank you.
It didn't
Well,
impact
we
me at
move
all.
on.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like, well, we moved, but it was similar like that because they obviously spoke Spanish and they spoke Catalan. So like I didn't even know the same
Yeah.
word was the same thing. I'd be like, come on, guys, work with me here. Can we
Yeah,
just stick to
exactly.
one type? But no, yeah, well done you for sticking that out. That was
Yeah,
far
no, I
more.
think it also matters when you have people around you who are very patient and understanding and they don't like expect you to just get things on the fly, like it's definitely overwhelming and like mentally draining, like when you always have to be like switched on
Mm,
to talk and understand. And it felt like throughout the day I could never just switch off mentally.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I think it just helped me grow in like many different ways, and it's something that I would never change, like it definitely helped me develop.
mm,
Did Newcastle come straight after America?
Yes, so that was 2020. I graduated in America. It was 2020 COVID year. And then I landed in Newcastle. Was it September time, mid-September? Um, And that was the year that I got hurt. So that was the year that I tore my Achilles. And
Mm.
then I was in Newcastle for what, like about a month, and then flew to Spain because that was when lockdown was really bad in England and it got better in Spain. And when they said you need surgery, I said, see ya. I'm out of
Mm.
here. So I spent the whole year in Spain, and that was the year that Newcastle had the crazy run during playoffs, made it all the way to the final. But I was in Spain, and then the year after that was when I actually got to play.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about the injury because obviously you come across your first, I think it was the first game against Nottingham, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
And it
for
wasn't
first
actually,
game.
yeah, it's the first game against Nottingham. And I mean, a bad injury, a season-ending injury. Talk about the mental impact that had on you at the time. Obviously, COVID was happening at the time, like all sorts was happening for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Like I look back and I'm like, wow, like it was just there were so many things going on at the time, and obviously like everything was quite bizarre, like even like training with COVID, like behind closed doors, and that was our first game in Nottingham, and it happened with like 20 seconds to go.
Hmm.
Played off, well, I was gonna say 40 minutes, but it was like 39 minutes and like 40 seconds, and it was just the most bizarre like movement. And then I went down, and I remember thinking that I got kicked from behind. Like I was so adamant that like someone had hit me from behind. And like when you watch back like the clip, like I take that step and I just fall. And you can see that I just look back like how on earth? Like it hurt so bad. And I was like, I got kicked. Like I felt like someone tripped over my foot, but no one was there.
Mm.
But at the time I was just like, they were like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, like I just got hit and it just hurts. And they were like, there was nothing, no one was behind you. And I was like, no, there was someone behind me. And it was just that sort of like, it hurts, but I was just in that sort of mindset of like, I'm okay, it's fine. Like I just got hit. And then they were like, no, like you should probably go get it checked. Like it's probably your Achilles. And then everything clicked, like in my head of like, no, that makes sense. Watch the film back. And I was like, no, yeah, you're crazy. No one was behind you. And everything just happened really quickly. But then going home and just having all the support from my family, getting surgery, and then going into the rehab, watching everything from away, like they had a crazy run in playoffs, and everything just felt really surreal. But I knew I was coming back to Newcastle because at the time I was doing my master's, so I had my part-time master's. So everything was online at the time. So I wasn't really missing out on much. I was doing my master's online that year, and then came back the next year to finish my master's in person, and then knew that I had the opportunity to play Bucks for Northumbria and then Newcastle Eagles for WBBL at the time. And it was just kind of like that sort of feeling of like, let's see where we go from here. Like I felt like I didn't have high expectations because I didn't really know what I was going to look like. but I just knew that I just wanted to like play. And here we are 3 years later. Like we
So
just kept going.
was that a decision for you each year to make? Obviously, did your masters finish after that second year?
Yeah.
So then the thought process of do I come back to Newcastle if the offer's there? Talk us through that end of the second year, then into your third, and then obviously fourth year with
Yeah.
Newcastle. Was it up to the plan always to stay?
I don't know if the plan was always to stay. I think I've like you said, like it was 1 year at a time, and I feel like even now, like I feel like I never look too far ahead. I feel like I always try to stay present in like the season. Like when I'm in the season, I'm in the season. I don't really look too far ahead. And then when the season ends, that's when I kind of like go, okay, now what? Where am I at mentally? Where am I at with basketball? Like the season's long, like there are ups and downs. Where am I like physically? And then we just kind of like go from there to like make decisions. And I want to play for as long as I can, as long as it feels right, and as long as I feel like I can still give and better myself, and as long as I enjoy it, like we'll keep going.
Obviously, you will talk about your move just to Durham in a second, but you played with some fantastic players at Newcastle. You built obviously some really good relationship, obviously with Chloe, with
With
Abby,
who?
especially. Talk us through the going back there early on this season, back at the Virtu Motors Arena. What was that like for you?
It was actually very special, like I think I didn't feel it felt weird like walking into the arena and then having to go to a different changing room. I feel like that was the most weird like moment, like I was just like, oh, like I just walked past, like the home changing room and I was like, like I had to like keep going straight. And then warming up on the other side, that also felt a bit strange. But then, like it just felt like, being at home because that was where, like I spent 3 years of my life and it didn't feel, like it didn't feel weird. I didn't feel any sort of like negative emotions. Like it really felt super welcoming and playing in on the court that, like we had so many ups and downs for those 3 years, but it definitely felt special. And like the crowd made it super special, like when they announced my name, like the crowd really like, like they clapped and like they were loud and it didn't feel weird. It didn't feel weird at all playing in front of that crowd, even if I was on the other side of it.
So obviously we talk about keeping it year to year, seeing where you are at the end of each year. Now in the summer just gone, rumors started to circulate that there'd been a bit of a move, a bit of a change of scenery for you. Can you talk
Yeah.
us through how that came about?
Um, well, like the season ended, and obviously, like we made it all the way to the final, and we had a very tumultuous season with, like um Noelia kind of like parted ways with the club, and then Matt took over, and then we had some additions. We had T, we had Lauren, and then we had Jada, and I feel like we never envisioned making it to the final. Like that's the reality. Like we never thought, yeah, like that's happening. Like we finished the regular season, and then obviously like we got to Sheffield and we had nothing to lose. We had that sort of like, we have nothing to lose. We knew that we had a tough schedule ahead to make it to the final. Like away in Sheffield was really tough. Beat Sheffield, and that was a good game, like very special game. Then obviously we go up to Caledonia and crazy game going into overtime. And I feel like everything clicked in time for us to be like, we have nothing to lose here. Like we went through so much that was just adversity, but we were not frazzled. We were there in the moment, and we took it. And then the final was tougher with London, but it was just like super special to make that run. And then I didn't know at the time, like, I'm always open to explore other options. And then as the summer went on, it just felt like a change was probably the right thing for me, like just to change of environment and looking at a different experience with a different team in a different program, not too far away. Because I love the Northeast, and it's really a place that, like, is special for me, and I feel really comfortable being here. So yeah, that's how we ended up in Durham. The decision wasn't made actually until, like, what time was it? Was it like mid-August? Like, that everything went down to, like, all the way down to August. So, like, things were not clear right after the final. Like, everything was kind of like up in the air for a couple of months. And, like, right after the season ended, I kind of wanted some time away from basketball to kind of like reflect on everything and see where I was at with everything. And as the summer went on, it just kind of like became clear that it was probably the right move for me as a basketball player, like, for my career to make that move. And here we are, yeah. I didn't expect it, like, if you told me when we were at the O2, like, you're not gonna be here, like, you're gonna be in Durham, I would have been like, wait, what? Like, but the summer just kind of like panned out that way.
But if you'd stayed in Newcastle, just a quick like little side note, you would have a new head coach right about now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would definitely have a new head coach. It would definitely be an interesting dynamic. And I mean, obviously, that I'm very close with Chloe, and they've had a lot of change as well this year. They've gone through some adversity with that sort of like transition period, but I'm super happy for her opportunity to be able to coach and show what she's capable of. I do think that Newcastle have some really good pieces, and I think that they could do something really special with that team. And obviously, they beat Manchester, so they're not a team to take lightly. And I feel like Chloe can definitely like guide them to be a very competitive team this year.
Yeah,
And
unbeaten.
sorry, I was
Sorry,
just going to
Rona,
say,
go
what do
on.
you think is the special sauce in Newcastle? Because you talk about, the 2020, and I'm sure that was actually a game I was calling with Rory against Pride, as it was Caledonia, and they
Yeah.
beat them. And then obviously maybe it's me, because then I was calling the Gladiators game against Newcastle, in the playoffs, and you just seemed like a team with intent. And I feel like that's when I saw them last weekend and the bits I caught this weekend. They always seem, apologies, she's not there. Newcastle seem to have a way of just seeming to build these bonds or that culture. Is that something you felt within the team? Like you say, there seems to be a lot of change, and that seems to be something they thrive on. Do you think if they had the same head coach with the same players from August through June or August through May,
Yeah,
it would be
yeah,
successful? Do you know what I mean?
no,
I'm like,
honestly.
what? Go on, tell us the magic secrets. Like,
I don't know if the magic secret is just having a revolving door of, like, just different coaches, like, we had a different coach every year. And it's not fun, like, I can't say it's the most enjoyable experience, from a team perspective. I think in a way it forces the team to have to kind of like gel in different ways,
Okay.
because there's always that transition period of like, we don't know what this looks like. There's a transition period of like, we don't know who the coach is going to be. We know that we need to stay ready regardless, and finding a way of like challenging each other when we don't have a coach, like, so I think maybe that's the secret, like, like, having that sort of uncertainty period where we just don't know what the future holds for the team, and having to rely on each other because there's not a coach to guide at the time.
Could be like
And
trust. Yeah.
yeah,
Trust,
and
like you
like
have to have trust
navigating
on
through like
court.
those like emotions all together, and every player deals with it differently. But at the end of the day, during that transition period, you kind of have to put the team together before yourself. And I don't know if that's why it builds that sort of bond that like then, like playoff comes, and yeah, well, you play the top teams and you go, oh, well, like, we have nothing to lose. We've gone through so much that like we can definitely rely on each other and trust each other, like you said.
And also, I think on the flip, you'd be like, we have gone through so much. So this is a walk in the park, just going out and playing 40 minutes of basketball, compared to what is going on behind the scenes. So I think that's interesting in looking at it, because you can do all the team bonding exercises you want, but that is like enforced, whether you want to or not, team bonding. I think it creates an interesting dynamic. So kudos to you guys as players for going through what you did.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's about perspective, what you said, like then you look at it and it's 40 minutes, 40 minutes at a time. We've got nothing to lose. When you look at the perspective of things, you go 40 minutes is actually not that bad. Like let's go for it and let's have fun and see where we can go with it.
Definitely.
I mean, speaking of adversity and building kind of that team togetherness and things, this season hasn't been a smooth ride for Durham so far. Talk us through your thoughts on what are we 5, 6 games into the season? Talk us through the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the adversity really comes with the numbers at the minute. Like we're very short-handed, and for the first few games, we didn't have Harriet because Harriet was away. So obviously, like she's a big presence for us. Then we have been dealing with some injuries, niggles. So I think the main adversity for us is like numbers and kind of like embracing that. I think I am excited to see when we have everyone
Mhm.
what we look like because I'm very confident that we have some really good pieces and we can definitely do some good things and be a lot more competitive than people expect us to be. So I think it's been challenging in the sense of like obviously we've had injuries and people missing and stuff. But I think in a way we're also figuring it out. Like when you have low numbers, you have to kind of like embrace that, you're gonna have 40 minutes of basketball and you have to fully rely on each other and you have to show up because, there's not many of us and there's not a rotation where like if you don't show up, someone is on the bench to like come in and take those minutes, you know what I mean? So I think it's creating that sort of like toughness of like, it can get tough and you can be tired and adversity will hit but we only have each other, so I think we're showing good moments of like basketball and we're showing moments where we are capable of doing really good things and being very competitive. It's just figuring it out and like building as the season goes on.
Perfect. Well, let's finish off because that's been a fascinating insight into your journey and a
Mhm.
fascinating insight into your time at Newcastle and obviously this season with Durham. But let's finish off with some quick fire questions to get to know you just that little bit better, off the court, maybe, should we say? So where do we start? Let me
You're up to
think.
no good. I can feel it already.
No, let's start with something light, just something. What's your kind of favorite TV show, film at the moment?
Oh God. Right now I'm just gonna go with I'm a celeb. I'm a Brit now. Like I just watch these things. So I've been watching it pretty much every night. Is it my favorite show? Probably not, but like right now it's probably like the show that I'm watching consistently.
And
Fair.
who's going to win?
Well, I don't even know at this point. The ones that I liked are gone. So right now I feel like Colleen might win. I think she's the fan favorite.
Oof,
No, it might not be my favorite, but that's my guess, I feel like.
fair enough. Um, do you have any superstitions? Do you anything you have to do on a game day? Get ready in a particular way, or anything that you have to do each game day?
For game day, I'm not superstitious, but I feel like I've found my own routine over the years. Um, I would say I need my jelly. I need my jelly for game day. So usually during our pre-game talk, I eat half of, like the jelly that comes in cubes. So it's usually strawberry, but sometimes other flavors. I usually eat half of it during our pre-game talk in the changing room, and then at halftime, I eat the other half. I feel like when I don't have the jelly, I feel like there might be something missing. Chloe got me into the jelly. I blame her for it, and now I have this like jelly addiction for game day. Other than that, I would probably just say that I need like a very specific ponytail. I'm usually not picky with like my ponytail for like practice and other stuff, but like I need a certain ponytail for it, and if it doesn't feel right, we need to start over again and work through it. So there are some annoying days where like it takes me a few attempts, but yeah, that's about it.
If I ever
Okay.
come across and play you for some weird reason, I'm going to pull your hair. And
I'm
Bucky.
definitely gonna fix it. Like it's
Yeah.
happened before. I think it was last year. I think it was we were playing Durham at home, and we I was trying to like box out, and someone came over and literally pulled my ponytail. And as soon as that happened, I was just like, my ponytail. So it didn't feel right for a couple of possessions, and then I think we went into the timeout, and I had to fix it, and then we were fine after.
Your kryptonite. There we go.
And then we won, so it was definitely the ponytail.
Fixed it.
So jersey number at Newcastle was 5.
hmm
Durham were at 31. Talk us through jersey number.
Um, yeah, I think I wore so when I was in Spain back then, I for the most part wore number 16. Then I went to America, I couldn't get 16, so I got 31. I didn't have many options, but I picked 31. Uh, Odd number, but I kind of like liked it out of the all the options. Didn't really have a meaning behind it, but yeah, played my entire college career with number 31, then moved to Newcastle, and I just felt like it was a new chapter, so I put kind of like 31 aside, liked number 5, and that's how I started my Newcastle career, and had number 5 for the longest time. But then when I moved to Durham, number 5 was already taken, and Eliza obviously has been here for a while, so that was a no-brainer for her to have it, obviously. And then I was just like, new number, like it's so weird. Like after 4 years of me having number 5, like it really felt weird. Like I didn't really have any other like options. And I was like, well, I really like number 5. Like I feel like that's my number. But then we obviously don't didn't have many players, so I had a lot of options to pick from. And I just decided to go back to number 31. Went back to my old days from when I was in America. So new chapter, new number, not so new, but definitely a change.
I like it. I like it.
I definitely need to think about it when I sign. When I sign, I'm so used to doing number 5, and I catch myself being like, oh no, no number 5, it has to be 31.
I'm going to test you out at the weekend when
Yeah.
they're not in
If
the
I'm
Nottingham
tired, I will
game.
probably do
I'll,
number 5, yeah.
I'll come up with an autograph and see what happens.
Yeah, that will be a good test.
One more then. Can you finish off this sentence? I love basketball because.
I love basketball because basketball is super dynamic, and it gives you some life experiences that any other sport wouldn't give you. That's
I
my
like
sense.
that. I like that. So now we've discovered that you and Rona have got Spain in common.
Yeah.
We've discovered all about obviously your time with Newcastle, which has been fascinating. Obviously to get to know that 2020 year, which must have been, I don't know, a crazy year in your
Yeah.
life.
For everyone,
Just
really, but yeah,
yeah,
definitely crazy.
yeah, just getting to know that has been fascinating. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being
Yeah, no
so open
problem.
and
Thank
honest
you,
with
guys.
us. And yeah, we will see how this season goes for yourself and for Durham.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully it will be a good one. We just need time to figure things out, but hopefully I will see you this weekend
Absolutely, you will
then.
indeed.
Perfect.
But
Thank you
thank
very
you
Yeah.
so
much,
much,
guys.
and we'll
Yeah.
see
Good luck with
you.
the season.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah, see you on.
Bye.
Bye.